Our friend, whose philosophy are we discussing?
Paul Ricoeur.
Paul Ricard.
Paul Ricoeur, not Paul. Paul
It's
is
Paul.
this one. It is Paul.
Paul.
Uh,
Paul.
Paul Ricoeur.
yeah, it is Paul. Paul Ricoeur, and we have seen the basic concept that he is talking about is the concept of the subject and various aspects of the subject we have been trying to understand. And yesterday we were trying to look into another dimension of understanding the subject according to Paul Ricoeur. And he says there are two possibilities that one is to go back to the history, the past. Another is to go to the future dimension of the subject. Going back to the past dimension of the subject, we have given, he was giving the example of whom? Going back to the past dimension, whose
Sigmund
example
Freud.
was he giving?
Sigmund
He
Sigmund
Freud.
was
Freud.
Sigmund
giving the
Freud.
example of Sigmund Freud, and he said the emphasis in Sigmund Freud is the emphasis on the past. So he is
Unconscious level.
asking us to go into the more into the unconscious level of our existence, and therefore the invitation by Freud is to go back to the past. So overemphasis on the past. So he says the past is required, but Freud seems to be overemphasizing the past aspect. Then there was another philosopher who was talking about the future dimension, the progressive dimension. Who is that?
Hegel.
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 Hegel. So Hegel is talking in his philosophy. We have not seen, but in his philosophy he says that the spirit, the reason, the spirit moves in the direction, moves in a particular direction. The spirit is always on the move, and therefore the emphasis is given of the to the future. Look at the future. This one. So that is called the eschatological dimension. Eschatological dimension is a dimension which looks towards the future. Looks towards the future. So he says these are the two currents that are very strongly visible today. One is the emphasis on the past, another the emphasis on the future. So he says we have to strike a balance. Too much emphasis on the past, too much emphasis on the future is not so doesn't help. But we have to have a dialectic between the past and the future. So that aspect, when you understand the subject, when you understand the ego, there should be the archaeological dimension. Archaeological dimension is the past dimension, and there also the eschatological dimension. Eschatological dimension is the future dimension. So the archaeological dimension and the eschatological dimension. So we cannot emphasize one over the other. So both are important. So with that, that's another aspect to understand the concept of the subject. Another very powerful, very powerful understanding of the subject, or another very important dimension to understand the subject, and that goes in various books of Paul Ricoeur, is the concept of the human fault, the fallibility of man. The human fault, the fallibility of man, the weakness of man, the fragility of man, the fragility of man, or in religious language, we call it the sinful aspect of man, the sinful aspect of man, the sinful aspect of man, the fragility of man, the sinful aspect of the frailty of man, the weakness of man. So this is another, very important dimension in order to understand the subject, the self, or what we call the ego, what we call the ego. Another very important, and that is what we call the ego. Very important point, and Paul Ricoeur elaborates this concept in various of his books, various of his interventions. So I like to highlight some of these aspects of which you also find in the notes, but after my explanation, you will be able to understand much better. We see that in human person, we see that in the human person, we see in the human person we see in the human person. There is the freedom aspect in the human person. There is the freedom aspect. No, there is the freedom aspect, and there is the aspect of necessity. The freedom aspect and the aspect of necessity. Freedom aspect means I feel free. I can, I have the feeling of freedom. I feel I have control of myself. That is the freedom dimension of man. The necessity dimension is a dimension where I feel I am not free. Where I feel I am not free. Where I feel that I am bound by several things. So these are the two aspects. Earlier we had spoken about the voluntary and the involuntary aspect. The voluntary and the involuntary aspect. Earlier we had spoken about it. So it is in this connection Paul Ricoeur is elaborating very extensively. Paul Ricoeur is elaborating very extensively the question of human freedom, human limitations, the human sinfulness, the goodness in man. So man is a composite of goodness and badness. Man is a composite of freedom and determinism. Man is a composite of saint and sinner, another expression. There is a saint aspect in us. There is also a sinner aspect in us. Man is a combination of varieties of things. So here he is trying to elaborate on the aspect. Why is that there is a sinful aspect in man? Why does man commit sins? Or why does man commit errors, evils, moral evils, ethical evils? Why? Why does man commit moral evils, ethical evils? Why is man bad? To put it in ordinary words, man also is good. Human person is good. But in human person, there is also a bad element. Why human person is bad? Why there is an aspect in man which prompts him to do good things? There is an aspect in man which prompts him to do good things. There is also another aspect in man which prompts him to do bad things. Like yesterday I said, you fellows are good fellows, very good fellows. You want to study, you want to get good marks, you want to be a good seminarian, you want to be rigorous, you want to shine out well, you want to, but there is an aspect of, laziness. There is an aspect of irritation. Why to come for this class? There is an aspect of, sleepiness. There is an aspect of not doing your work properly, escaping from the work. If you are in the seminary, you try to escape from the work. If you are in the seminary, you try to escape from the work. Try to sleep during mass, prayer and all that. Listen.
Yes,
Trying
Father.
to sleep during mass, escape from work, trying to, escape from the eyes of the superior. You see? But your intention is good, Dominic, intention is good. So you see? So why is that? So Paul Ricoeur is trying to analyze and say, there is the good aspect in man, there is the bad aspect in man. So he explains this, why there is good aspect and bad aspect at three levels, three areas, imagination, character and feeling. Imagination, character and feeling. Imagination, character and feeling. Imagination works at the theoretical level. Imagination works at the theoretical level. Imagination works at the theoretical level. Where he explains, man is open on all things, on the totality of truthfulness, on the infinity of logos, but he is open to this reality only through the small window of his finiteness. So why we make mistakes in our imagination? He says, he gives an example. It's like I am open to the infinite. I am open to the infinite. I want to reach the infinite. But the problem is the way to reach the infinity is very small. It's like an example he gives. It's like I see a big horizon outside me, but I see the horizon only through my window. The window is very small. You see, the window is very small. I see the horizon outside only through a small window. Why small window? Because I can't see it otherwise. In other words, I see everything from a finite perspective. I see everything from a finite perspective. Why finite perspective? Because I am a finite being. Why finite perspective? Because I am a finite being. I'm not an infinite being. If I was an infinite being, I would have been able to see things in an infinite way. Because I am a finite being, I am able to see things only from a finite perspective. I am not able to see things from an infinite perspective. Therefore, in my imagination, there is the desire to go very high, the desire to go high, but the desire to go high is limited because the access to my desire is very limited. The window of my desire is very limited. So that is one reason why I commit mistakes or error at the theoretical level. At the practical level, that comes under the character, comes under the practical level. So there is a dichotomy between the good and my desire for the good, but the limitation to achieve this good, I desire everything good, everything perfect. I desire perfect happiness. Who does not desire perfect happiness? I desire perfect joy. I desire perfection in everything. Perfect. I desire. But I can't reach that desire because I am a limited man. I am limited. I am limited. I cannot meet all my desires. You may be desiring to become, I do not know what. You may be having the desire to become a saint, which is a good desire. Saint. But you feel that I am very limited. My limitations are so high. You feel that my limitations are very high, and therefore I am finding it difficult. So that is at the level of character. And finally, at the level of feeling, that is called the affective level. Level of feeling is called the affective level. Level of feeling is called the affective level. There is the dichotomy between the understanding and willing. There is the dichotomy between the understanding and the willing. Man opens towards the totality of love. Man wants to be at the totality of love. But this is only through a limited sentiment of love. But his sentiment of love is very limited. His sentiment of love is very limited. So I want to love. I want to give myself completely in love. I want to give myself completely in love. But what happens? I realize that I have such an amount of egoism, selfishness. When I am such an amount of selfishness, I cannot love fully the other. But I want. There is a desire in me to love fully. There is a desire in me to love fully. But what happens? I am not able to do it because I am caught with my selfishness. I am caught with my selfishness. Are you all there with me?
Yes, Father.
Yes, Father.
Yes, Father.
Robin, has he
Yes,
come?
Father.
Robin, has he come?
Is there, Father?
Is there? Where he is there? I can't see him,
Father.
not listen to him.
I am here, Father.
You fellow, I'm
Yes,
talking everything about you so far.
I am here.
No, Father. You have just spoken me about.
Ah, I'm just waiting whether you are there or not.
I am here, Father.
You are here. Thank God you are there. Don't go in
No, Father.
between.
I am not going anywhere.
Not going. No holidays hereafter. Robin, no holidays, no baptism, no this one. What is that? Jubilee, and I don't
Marriage.
know what else. Jubilee,
Just to say to
baptism.
Father Ragesh, Father.
Rakesh, I have thrown him out. Rakesh is there. Oh, Vipin has come. Thank God.
Here,
Vipin,
Father.
can
I'm
you hear
here.
me?
I
Praise
was
the Lord.
here, Father.
I'm
Vipin is the
present, Father.
most regular man.
Father, I
The
was here
most
only.
regular man is Vipin. He's a regular in sending
Thank you,
homework and
Father.
all that. You follow his example. Robin, follow his example.
Sure,
Spiritually.
Father.
Okay, good. So we are discussing about the reason why we are discussing about the reason why in man there is the aspect of freedom and also the aspect of necessity. Why in man there is an aspect of saintliness within. In every man there is an aspect of saintliness within. In every man there is an aspect of saintliness. But also in every man there is also an aspect of sinfulness. Listen, there is an aspect of
You are right,
sinfulness.
Father.
Ah, in every man within there is an aspect of saintliness. But listen, in every man there is an aspect of Satanness. Are you able to hear me?
Father.
Yes, Father.
Now
Father.
I
Very
suppose I am
clear.
very clear what I am talking. So you
Very
see,
clear, Father.
this is the dichotomy that we have. All of us are struggling with it. Nobody can say I don't have such struggles. So all of us are struggling with this. So Libin has come, not Libin, my friend. This man has
Dilaman.
come. Okay. The other aspect, we are moving further. We are moving further. The other aspect of Paul Ricoeur is trying to understand the concept of evil, the aspect of evil or the reality of evil. Paul Ricoeur is trying to understand the reality of evil, and one of the reasons we have spoken how he is trying to understand the reality of evil through the aspect of imagination, through the aspect of character, through the aspect of the feeling at the theoretical level, at the practical level, and at the affective level, which I have explained just now, which is also found in your notes. It is in this line of thought, Paul Ricoeur continues his research on the issue of evil. It is in this line of thought he continues his research or his excavation, his interest to discover the concept of evil. And here Paul Ricoeur makes a beautiful study about the myths. He makes a beautiful study about myths, mythology, myths. And it's very interesting to know that Paul Ricoeur has made a very nice study. Paul Ricoeur has made a very nice study, very analytical, exploratory study, detailed study about the different myths, mythologies that exist in every culture and civilization. Mythology exists in every culture and civilization. In Indian, we have Indian mythologies, Ramayana, Mahabharata. We have the mythology in the Bible, like Adam and Eve. They are today considered as mythology, myths. They are not historical things, Adam and Eve. There is mythology in the Greeks. in every African culture, African civilization have their own mythologies. Every culture, every civilization has its own mythology. Now, Paul Ricoeur makes a comparative study between different mythologies or myths that are found in different cultures and civilizations. So here in this, he is coming to the conclusion, if you make a comparative study between various myths of different civilizations, the mythology in India compared to the mythology in Greece, mythology in African countries, mythological issues in other countries, any part of the world. If you make a comparative study, one thing is very clear, that there are several common elements in all mythological stories. There are several common elements in all mythological stories. What is one of the most common element? Anybody can tell me what is one of the most common element which can be found in all mythologies? Who will tell me?
Good, avoid evil.
What is that?
Good and evil.
Do
Avoid
good,
evil.
avoid evil.
It is the question of the existence between the good and the evil. So that is seen in every mythology. There
Creation
is
story.
always a conflict between the good and the evil. There is a conflict between the good and the evil. And if this conflict goes on, you see, even in Adam Eve myth, we see that Adam and Eve were created by God. They were good people. And suddenly a serpent comes and he disturbs the entire situation. He disturbs the entire situation. You see, in the Indian mythologies, Ramayana, we say Rama is a very nice man or a nice king, excellent, truthful, and he does so much good to his people. But suddenly there is a kingdom of evil which comes and disturbs the goodness of this king. You see? And there is a constant battle between the two. A constant battle, a conflict, constant conflict between the two. And we see that initially the evil seems to be winning, but ultimately the evil loses. And these days we are having the first reading in the Mass. Whose reading we are having these days?
Job, from the book of Job, Father.
From the book of
Job,
Job.
Job, Job.
Some of you who don't go
From
for
the book of
Mass,
Job.
Denzil, do you go for Mass?
Yes, Father.
The book
Regular to
of
the
Job.
mass. Every
Saint Jerome
There
feast,
are
Father,
some
today.
people who.
Today is the feast of Saint Jerome,
Saint
Father.
Jerome.
The man who translated the Bible from Hebrew to
The
Latin.
Bible is
Vulgate.
ignoring the Christ.
Oh,
Vulgate.
listen. Looks
Yes,
like
Father.
you had to give the commentary, I think, this morning for Mass. Most
He was
No,
powerful.
Father.
awake. Today is the day
I
he
do
was awake in the
meditation,
mass.
meditation, Father, and
Today
everything.
he was awake. He was awake in the mass, Father.
Okay. Now, so these days we are having the readings from the book of Job, and we see how the presence of evil comes in. The presence of evil comes in, and how Job almost becomes a victim of the evil. But towards the end, we see how Job succeeds and he rises over. So you see, in every mythology, in every myth, this common factor is there, the struggle between, the conflict between the good and the evil, which we see very, very rampantly. So Paul Ricoeur says, it is not by, it is not simply this one, it doesn't happen just that way. There is a thing, there is something running all through human nature. There is some common aspect which is running in human nature. And he says, we use a lot of symbols, we use a lot of signs, a lot of symbols are used. And therefore, Paul Ricoeur gives a very strong statement. Note the statement. The symbol gives rise to thought or thinking. The symbol gives rise to thought or thinking. The symbol gives rise to thought or thinking. In other words, what he is trying to tell us is that through symbols, we are able to understand certain amount of human nature, the meaning of human existence. In every symbol, there is the meaning of human existence. In a couple of seconds, it will disconnect, but we come back. We come
Yes.
back. Same number, same number, same number, same number, same number. So, so don't wait for any other code. So you see, the symbol gives rise to thinking. What meaning is that? The symbol gives rise to meaning means that symbol enables us to know the meaning of our human existence. It enriches human existence. The symbol is able to help us to know what is the meaning of human, why there is evil in human existence, why evil comes and pesters human existence. So symbol is able to help us. Symbol is able to help humanity, and therefore the myths, the symbols